Meet Abby. She's a foster child. And like 400,000 other children in the United States just like her, she stands in line for a foster care system that struggles mightily to provide children with loving homes. The cost of that struggle is staggering. Did you know that over 60% of American children caught up in sex trafficking come out of foster care? Or that there are several states where over half the prison inmates come from the foster system? Or that the majority of girls who age out of foster care become pregnant within 2 years, perpetuating the cycle of generational poverty? Abby needs more than a roof over her head. She needs a home. She needs more than the state. She needs a father and a mother. She needs consistent and sincere love, nurturing, accountability, and hope. Live the Promise is based on the biblical promise in Psalm 68:6. God sets the lonely in families. It's our commitment to live that promise, specifically for foster kids. When we compare the number of kids in need of homes with the number of churches in America, a simple arithmetic becomes clear. If each church could raise up one foster family, we would be able to take all children in the foster system and place them in the care of a loving home. Live the Promise exists to encourage and equip these churches to raise up loving families and volunteers committed to caring for kids like Abby. We will achieve this in 3 ways. First, we use church awareness campaigns to inspire new families to express God's love by giving homes to children in need. Second, we provide an engineered care community to surround foster families with love and support, which keeps approved families fostering longer. Third and finally, by providing many ways in which families can serve together and be the hands of God to these needy children. We help many families transition from supporting foster families to becoming foster families. Abby needs help. Churches want to help. Live the Promise helps churches by giving them clear direction and concrete actions to take. Live the Promise helps Abby and many more like her by raising up families who want to put the promise of God into action. The need is great. The time is now. Let us live the promise together.
Well, good morning, and thank you for being here on Foster Sunday. We are so incredibly excited, and I know some of you are sitting here thinking, oh man, I came to the wrong Sunday because I am not about to be a foster parent. And so I would just challenge you to just listen, okay? Because I realize that fostering is not for everyone, but we have actually partnered with an organization called Live the Promise, who supports and rallies around foster families across America. And I think when I watched that video, and I've heard that statistic before, but the statistic that I hear that always staggers me is that 60% of kids that are rescued out of sex trafficking come out of the foster care system, which is amazing to me. It just blows my mind. And what that tells me is that if Satan is targeting these kids, why can't we do the same? And it's time for our church to quit playing defense and start playing some offense. And that's exactly what this Sunday is about. You're going to hear some incredible stories. You're going to hear some things. I would just ask that you keep your heart open. That however God prompts you and uses you and speaks to you this morning, to keep your heart open. We know that we are wanting to be a church. I talk all the time about being a church that wants to be more than just this hour on Sunday. And we believe that if you've heard me say anything, and if you've ever heard me preach, or you've heard me say anything, you've heard me say a phrase that it's not about us. And it's not about us. It's not about just us sitting in these blue puffy chairs for an hour each week. It's what we do throughout the week that counts, and that's what makes us the church. That's exactly what Jesus has told us to do. We know that fostering is not everyone, but we know that everyone can do something, and that's what we're asking you to this morning, is just to come with an open mind and an open heart. There are 17,900 children in the foster care system in the state of Illinois alone. 17,900 foster care kids. The question is that we want to challenge each one of you today, and it's something you've heard me ask before, is just a simple question. What does love require? So as you sit here listening this morning, and you hear from different people, and you're gonna hear from someone here in a minute, but if you hear different stories, just answer that question. What does love require of me? And so I want to take just a minute this morning. I don't know if is anybody listen to WBGL? Anybody ever listen? Oh, yeah. Woo! Yeah. I got some fans. And so if you're a WBGL listener, chances are you have heard Joe B every afternoon on the radio. And Joe's career began in 1995 in Rockford, Illinois, and soon after he was promoted to full-time music director. Joe is responsible at WBGL for choosing online music, so if you have something you want to hear, you might want to catch him after the service. He schedules music. He's worked with record companies and communicating with listeners like us. And in 2000 and 2011, he received the Radio and Records National Industry Award for Music Director of the Year, which is awesome. And he has been married with his wife, Tara, for 21 years, 22 maybe, I don't know, 22 now, and has 4 children. So we are incredibly honored to have Joe Buchanan. Joe Buchanan, go ahead and come on up. Just give Joe a nice Salem Grace welcome. Thing I love about Joe is he's all of that, but more than that, he's a follower of Jesus Christ, and like many of us, has an awesome story, and we've asked him to come share his story. So thank you for being here, Joe.
Thank you so much. So we're just going to go through a bunch of music. You guys, I'm just kidding. Grateful to be here this morning. I'm so excited that you guys are doing this morning, just bringing awareness to foster care. And I'm going to share a little bit of my story. And as I do, I just want to point out that I don't know what circumstances brought you in here today. Whether you're currently in foster care, you're a foster parent, you're considering foster care, or just know somebody who's fostering, what I want to do is allow my story to infuse hope into your situation and encourage you that God can use you in an extraordinary way. So I was born not terribly far from here in Kentucky, and my parents were really young. My mom was a teenager, like 15, and my mom, at the age of 4, decided, or when I was 4, she was a little bit older than that, she decided that my brother and I didn't deserve to live anymore. And so she tried to end our lives, and that's when I was introduced to the foster care system. And for the next 6 years or so, I spent time moving from foster homes, about 15 different foster homes. I experienced a lot of abuse in those homes, unfortunately. Had no idea of what it was to feel loved. I really believed that I was not only unloved, but unlovable. I felt insignificant, small, felt like there was really no purpose for my life. At the age of 10, a family from Chicago, Illinois did step in and decided to adopt my brother and I, and we were brought to Chicago as a foster kids to eventually be adopted, which we were. But my adoptive parents also turned out to be very abusive, had no problems locking us in a crawl space and closets, and the physical and emotional abuse continued until I was 15, and I decided I'd had enough. And I kind of thought of Jesus and God as kind of like fairy tales or legends. They didn't really exist. And I made a deal with this God. I said, God, if you're real, then you're going to have to prove yourself, because if you don't, then I'm going to call it quits. And actually had set a date on the calendar to call it quits, and that day came, and so God didn't show up for me, and so I decided to end my life. And this is the first instance of someone stepping into my life and infusing hope. Her name was Lori Ann. I ended up in a hospital for 8 weeks. And Lori Ann was my nurse on our unit for one night. And she was really cute, by the way. So to a 15-year-old boy who really had no purpose to live, I couldn't understand why this girl this nurse, who was very attractive, seemingly had it all together, thought that there was something to God. Because she says to me at the end of her shift, "You look like someone who really needs the Lord." And then she handed me a Bible, and she left. And I opened the Bible. I don't remember what I read that night, but I remember saying, God, if you're real, then I need to know that you're real, and I need to know that my life means something more than what it's meant. And the best way to describe it is as if I had been shivering my entire life, and in that moment, the shivering stopped. And you guys aren't from Chicago, but in Chicago, we shiver a lot. And you forget you're shivering until it stops. And then when it stops, you recognize it. And I didn't know it at the time that it was the peace of God. But God began to work in me, or began to grow in me. Things got a whole lot worse before they got better, but God began to orchestrate this plan that he had for my life. And it wasn't until I was 20 years old that I felt loved for the very first time. And that experience changed everything in my life. The whole trajectory of my life changed. And I wanted to just tell people that they're loved, and I wanted to communicate to people that feel insignificant and feel small and feel unloved, that God does have an extraordinary plan for their life. So when I was 18, my parents disowned me, and I ended up living with a friend, and that friend pushed me toward forgiveness. And so I wanted to talk about that for just a minute today, because if it weren't for forgiveness, I wouldn't be here before you now. I wouldn't be on the radio. I would probably be bitter somewhere if I'm even alive. Forgiveness was a key ingredient to the healing process. It had completely stalled out. And it took God a full year to work on me. I fought him for a year, thought he was off his rocker. Why would he want me to forgive and set these people free? And when I did, it was me that was set free. So that's the first thing, is if there's unforgiveness, if you feel like your healing process has stalled, ask God if there's unforgiveness. Number two, when I was 5 years old, I lived in this foster home. It was the only Christian home I lived in. And it wasn't until much later that I found these foster parents, like 17 years later. And they were living in a completely different home. And when I drove up to their house to see them, and I walked into their house, I felt like I was home for the first time in my life, because this family poured into me. I was there for a very short period of time because the foster mom got sick and I had to move on. But I call it my oasis period, because it was during that time that God was able to pour love into me. I didn't know I was loved. I still felt unlovable, but I didn't realize it till much later. So I want to encourage you. Maybe you're fostering now. Maybe you're considering fostering. Maybe you know a family who's fostering. Maybe you just know a child who feels insignificant, or maybe just looks like a troublemaker. Maybe they're not a troublemaker. Maybe they're battling something greater than you know. You can impact their life in an extraordinary way just by reflecting God's love to them, because it's possible that they don't know that they're loved. And so I, again, appreciate what you guys are doing today. I think this is fantastic. I'll be in the back a little bit later after the service if you want to talk, if you feel insignificant. Maybe you've never even told anybody that. Maybe you don't feel loved. Maybe you know God loves everybody else, but man, Joe, if you knew what I've done or what I've been through, you wouldn't say that's true. But that's not for me to say. God says that he loves you. I believe it, and I believe it to be true. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Joe. I know he has a lot more to that story that he could share, and so I'd encourage you to, thank you for sharing, Joe. Just an incredible, he's got an incredible story of how God has used him and where he was placed in his life. And so, much like Joe, we've got others in our, and one of the things that the video showed earlier was that a statistic showed that if we had every church in America would raise up one foster family, that every child in foster or need would have a home. Isn't that amazing? If every church just took one family to raise up, and we're at a church that believes in this. We're at a church, and I'm thankful to call Sony, you were my friends that do this, but we have so many, and we want to invite them to share this morning. So I'm going to ask those families to come on up, if you would, to our panel. If you guys would come on up and take your spots. Just so you know, this is just we've asked a few of our families to come up and share, answer some questions just about their particular foster care stories and how they relate. And so I want you to know, though, this is just a very small section. We have 18 families in this church right now that are currently have foster children and are taking care of foster children in their home. So this is just a small section, but you guys can have a seat. You can make yourself comfortable if you want. And then we're going to go ahead and jump in. And I'm going to do that just to introduce you a little bit first. This is Mike and Christy T-Burnt. Many of you know Mike and Christy, but Mike and Christy have 6 kids. I should just stop right there. And we should just give them a medal. But they 3 are biological and 3 are adopted through foster care system. They became foster parents in 2011 and have had a total of 8 foster children placed in their home. After they adopted the youngest of 3 girls, their home was full by Illinois standards and limits, and so they had to surrender their license. They have a passion for kids, Love that. They do, all of these people have a passion for kids. They do their best to love their 6 children and put any child that God, and love any child that comes into their life. They also lead with 6 children. If you think, well, I'm just too busy, they also lead our junior high ministry. And that in itself is incredible. I don't know if you've ever led junior high kids, but they smell funny and they're wild. But they also do that, have a passion for those kids as well. So maybe when their kids get older, they can able to foster again. But this is Mike and Christy, and I'm going to let Cheryl jump in and kind of do some more. You guys.
I got all kinds of microphones. So the next is Matea Petrie. And so before I go down, before we introduce everybody, we just want to kind of give you, we didn't just like randomly select. We specifically selected of different perspectives that we want you to hear. So each of the people who are up here are representing a different perspective of foster care. And so Matea is the daughter of Ryan and Amanda Petrie. Matea is 15 years old and attends SCHS. She has 3 siblings, Kirsty, Zion, and Colin. Her family has been fostering for a little over 4 years, and in that time, they have cared for a total of 5 kids. And so the reason that Matea is up here is she is going to give you the perspective of the perspective of a bio kid in a foster care family. So.
Keep going.
The next is Michelle Siglinski. Michelle is a divorced single mom of 13 years. She has 2 older children. Clayton is 20 and Caitlin is 16. Michelle has been fostering since December of 2017. She currently has 1 special needs foster daughter who has been with her family since December of 2017. Michelle has had the pleasure of having 7 placements that have either returned home, moved to an adoptive home, or were placed with family. Her placements have been anywhere from 24 hours to 5 months. Michelle's support consists of fellow foster mamas and her church family.
And next to Michelle is Kylie Haynes. And Kylie has been part of Dak and Melissa's family, who are on the end, for almost a year. And Kylie has 5 brothers and 1 sister. She is 12 years old and will be adopted soon.
Yay, yeah! And this is Dak and Melissa Johnson. They currently have 7 children, Metal as well, 2 adult sons, 1 adult daughter, 2 adopted sons, ages 8 and 9, a 12-year-old daughter that will be adopted very soon, and a 4-year-old son that they are fostering with the hope and intentions of adopting. Dak and Melissa have been fostering for 3 years and have cared for 5 kiddos, and they also provide respite care when it is needed. And so that is our, these are the folks that we have chosen this morning for you to hear from. So Trent, if you would like to go ahead and start, we'll start.
So we're going to start on the end here with Mike and Christy, and I'll tell you, when these families, and like so many others, literally we have 18 families. We could have had 18 families up here and spent all afternoon because they are so incredibly passionate. It was hard to just pick a cross-section, but we wanted to kind of give you a cross-section. So Mike and Christy, I mean, you've done it for so many years. You have 6 kids. What is the greatest reward that you've experienced as parents in being obedient to the call? And maybe the second part of that question is what made you pursue it in the first place?
Well, I'll start with that one. We actually got involved in the process of international adoption, and there was the tragedy in Haiti back in, I think it was 2011. But when we saw these kids without homes, we just immediately we felt sick over it, and we had talked about adoption for a long time. We thought that was something we wanted to do someday, but it was always someday, and but that triggered something in us, and so we started the process of looking into adopting. And we quickly found out that Haiti wasn't going to work for us because we hadn't been married long enough and we weren't old enough. So we actually landed on the Philippines, but several people just kept bringing foster care to our attention. And we were like, yeah, we heard lots of stuff about foster care. We don't want to do that, which is awful, but that's what we were feeling. But the more it kept getting brought up, the more I thought, okay, God is doing this. He's bringing this to our attention. And so a friend of ours, Jen Dice, we were here making parachutes for Voice of the Martyrs. And I started asking her questions about it. And she was answering my questions very passionately and full of love. And I could just see it on her face, how she felt about what she was doing. And of course, I taglined the conversation with the thing that I've heard probably more than any response when I've said what we do. And that's, well, I don't think I could take a kid into my home and then have them taken away and put back where they were. And that's exactly what I said to her. And she looks at me with like this glare. You gotta know Jen. Anyway, she says to me, "Oh, Christy, it's not about you." And I was like, I sitting down and I'm sitting there thinking, it was like a sucker punch right in the stomach. And I thought, okay. I felt this big. And, I just I sat there quiet for a while because I really didn't know what to say. But I was just ashamed of myself, honestly. And I thought, I've had this wonderful life. I have great parents, and Mike's, same thing. We both have wonderful parents, wonderful grandparents. We've just had a very blessed life with lots of people who love us and support us. And I thought, here, I'm going to be selfish with all of that because I'm worried about me. I'm worried about what it's going to do to me or my two kids. I was thinking about my daughters, Emma and Addison, and I thought, we're going to be hurt and if something happens like that. And so I sat there thinking about all that, and I thought, how awful that I'm so concerned about myself after I've had everything given to me, and almost everything I've ever wanted almost have been given to me. And I was just ashamed, totally ashamed. So I told Jen I was going to pray about it, but in my mind, I was sure I knew what was going to happen. I was like, I'm going home, and I'm telling Mike, and we're doing this. And so I went
How'd
home.
you feel? So, Mike, how'd you feel about that?
Something like that.
Put that mic up.
Yeah.
So the reward, what's the greatest reward that you guys had? Mike, I don't know if you would share or any.
Well, I'm going to hold it together. You guys
No,
have
you're
seen me
not.
up here, and it's tough. I know that she says, and I'm getting off, and Trent will be like, let's go. But, this is obviously something that we both share personal. It's on our heart. And the greatest reward for me is, giving those kids a chance at life, at a life that they'd have never had, because we have personal relationships with the mom of one. And I know and the grandma of the other one, and I know for a fact that, and it's not me bragging, it's not her bragging, but we see the other side of it, and the reward for us is to...
It's all good. I told you they're passionate
Thanks,
about it.
Dak. Dak walked by, looked like he was going to cry, and that's it. No.
Crying during the music.
It's always the guys. Why are we such big babies? Yeah.
The greatest reward for me, deep down, is when I sit at home and I see them sleeping peacefully, and they hug me. And it's like they're my own. I don't look at them any different.
Now you're making me cry. Awesome.
Yeah. Thank you,
This is
guys.
why it didn't take any convincing.
No.
I went home and he was like, yes, let's do it.
So, Matea, I've got a question for you. How did you feel when your parents said, hey, we're getting ready for our first placement, and you got that first placement? How did you feel when it was time for your first placement to go back home?
I had always wanted little siblings, so I was really excited. Sorry, you started crying at me. So when my parents told me that we were getting 2 little girls, I lost it. I was 11, and I was really, really excited. We had them for a few months, and just waking up every morning and helping them bath and braid their hair and just play with them is something that I would never ever want to take for granted. And when my parents told me one morning after taking care of them, that they were actually going back home, I remember just feeling like really upset because I didn't know that the point was to get them back home, and I didn't understand that. And I think as I got older, I mean, every time I see two little girls in public, I automatically think of our first placement. But like now I know that whenever we get a kid or we get a call, and it's not about us, it's about, caring for them and loving for them and, just giving them the family and the home that they need. And when they return, that's a happy thing. Because not only did they get the love of our Christian home and just all the memories that like we've gave the kids, and now they get to go back to their families. So I think it's extremely rewarding.
Okay, so let me ask you this, Mateus. So obviously it hurts when you have a placement and they go back home. You're attached, you're invested. Is it worth it?
Absolutely. I mean, it's awesome because like you get so many kids and so many like just different mindsets and memories and imaginations. So when they come in and my little brother and I just get to love on them and my parents love on them, and when it's their time to go back home, it honestly kind of feels good because I know that we've helped out in ways that other families might not have been able to.
Perfect. Thank you.
Perfect. Yeah. Awesome. Michelle, you're next. So this is Michelle Seglinski. Michelle, you have two children that are grown, more or less, right? They're out of the house. You are a single mother. You really don't have any support from your family that's very close by. Why, that you can rely on support. So why in the world would you choose foster care? What, why in the world made you choose that? And what keeps you awake at night? You got to hold that close. Hold it closer. There you go.
Because I'm afraid of three things: tornadoes, spiders, and empty nests. Terrifying. The thing that I won't have a child to care for. What keeps me awake at night is the fear of the unknown.
Yep. So talk to us about what that's been like, because some people would say, well, I'm not married. I'm a single parent. I don't have a partner to do this with, to walk through life, to kind of help me with this. What are some of the challenges you face there? And then what would your advice be to someone else that's in that same?
I guess not having a spouse, I tend to go to my older children with the stress, and I've had to remember not to do that because they're siblings, not a parent. But if you're thinking about it and you're single, there's absolutely no reason why you shouldn't do it.
Yeah. And then your greatest reward so far?
Watching the kids thrive and the color and life come back in their face.
Perfect.
Perfect. Sweet.
Okay, Miss Kylie, it's your turn. So I've got a question for you. First of all, tell us, how old were you when you were placed in your first foster?
I was 11 years old.
11 years old. Okay, and so my next question is, when you knew you were going to be placed with a foster family, what was one thing that you were most nervous or scared about?
I think I was most scared about being disappointed. Like, I loved the family so much, but they didn't want me.
Okay, and that's what you were scared that they wouldn't? Okay, and then let me ask you one more thing.
Hold it just a little closer, Kylie, and then it won't feedback. There you go. Hold it closer. Yeah, there you go. Perfect.
And so, is Dak and Melissa the first family that the only family you've been placed with? Yes. Okay, because you were with relatives before. All right, so let me ask you this question. Being scared that you wouldn't be loved or accepted, finding out that you're absolutely so loved and accepted, what is the one thing that you appreciate or love most about your new family?
Like, I love that they understand my feelings, like how I feel sometimes.
Perfect.
So Dak, Melissa, I mean, you guys have had several, and this is Melissa's favorite thing to do, by the way. She has been begging me for months to get up here and speak, and I said, well, wait, we'll get you up there sooner or later. But she absolutely loves this. Loves to speak in small groups, very outgoing. But you know what? I love that about Melissa is they're so passionate about this, and that's the thing that I've been telling you about. When God calls you to your most uncomfortable spot is where He will use you the most. And so you guys pretty much empty nesters. Your kids are kind of grown. They're gone, doing their own thing. They're married, that type of thing. And you guys chose to jump into this foster care. So I want you to talk a little bit about that, what prompted that. And then also from the outside looking in, like when we see you guys and your boys and Kylie and your family, it looks like like this, oh, this is this perfect little family. Everything looks great.
They have it so together.
You've
all
got
the
it
time.
so together. What are some of the challenges that foster care has given you, and what are some of the toughest things to carry?
Okay, what's the first question?
I don't know. Pick one.
Woo, that was all of them together.
Yeah, I know.
So we were about to be empty nesters, and of course, that's why we were hesitant. Quite frankly, I was ready just to hang with my man.
Wow.
But it was clear, it was so clear we were being called, so we chose to be obedient. We did not know what that looked like, but we know we wanted to please God.
No, just to add to that, I mean, Melissa has felt it on her heart for quite a while. I was the one thinking, hey, she's just going through the empty nest syndrome. Give her time. It's like a puppy. Give her time to put it off to the side. She doesn't. I got like 3 dogs now. It's crazy. But no, I mean, she had felt God calling her for a long time, and I just kept telling her, let's wait, and kept putting it off. And it wasn't until someone gave a testimony just like this. Man, God pricked your heart. Man, when your heart's pricked, man, it's just like that little kid. You touched my heart, what are you doing? It just, I knew right then. God was calling me. I didn't know what I was doing, but I knew that's what God wanted me to do. And that was it there.
Let me ask you guys this. So, from the outside looking in, it looks like everything's all put together. Does it feel like that on the inside?
Feels like controlled chaos.
Okay. So, do you feel like
We look good on social.
We have a company that does that for us on social media.
do you feel like having a group of people who would come alongside of you and wrap their arms around your family to love and support you, do you feel like that would be something that would be helpful? Like just maybe a break once in a while, or a meal once in a while, or
Just prayers.
prayers once in a while. Would that be helpful?
Tell them, yes, absolutely. And just to see other people loving their children.
Okay. Okay.
Did anybody else answer that question? Any of you guys? Anybody else want to take that too? What that was
Michelle, would you, I'm going to bump it down to you. Do you feel like you're in it day in, day out with very little support? Do you feel like there would be a benefit to you? Like, would it help you maybe even be a better mom for a longer period of time if you had a circle that came around you and a tribe that came around you and said, we're going to be here for you, we're going to pray for you, we're going to help you? Would that be something that how would you feel about that?
I think it'd be amazing. I do have a person in the neighborhood that started mowing my yard last year. It's just like a one-time thing because my backyard was like this high. And as a single mom, it's kind of hard to get out there and mow. And he just continued to do it. So I'm very, very thankful for that. And his family, one of the daughters helps babysit. They have absolutely no idea the impact they have on me by just mowing and babysitting whenever I need help.
I love that. I think so many times when you think of helping foster care, and all of us are sitting here going, well, we can do something. The first thing that doesn't pop to your mind is, I should mow that person's yard. Those are things that mean so much. And it's a way for us to partner with these families who have taken that ultimate step, and regardless of whether God is calling you to take that step or whether he's calling us, I believe he's calling us all, without a doubt, to support and to do something. Some of us, all of us can do something. And so I think it's a great example. So anybody else would answer that question, Chrissy or Mike?
Well, I would just say that, I think we kind of thought, once the fostering part was over and we had adopted our 3 little girls that we adopted, that things would be easier. I mean, we got them as babies, so you don't think about what's coming next. But there's a lot of emotion involved with knowing that you're adopted and knowing that you have birth parents somewhere. And for us, we are actually involved with the birth mother of 2 of them and then the grandma of 1. And so they have that connection a little bit, enough to just really probably get confused a little bit sometimes. And they don't even know what they're feeling, their emotions just change daily. And what we go through now just changes daily. I mean, we're just wading through new waters all the time. And it's not easy. I mean, we may look like, well, no, I don't think we look like we have it together here. Everybody's like, those people are nuts. Like dragging people out the door. We're like, who did we forgot somebody. There's only 5. So I'm sure we don't look like them. But our kids come in with their hair not big. We're just good to get here. But you think once the adoption's over, things are, good. And it's not easy. It's just not always easy. And not feeling like you're alone in this is just a big deal.
Okay, last question, and we'll just go down the line. Well, before we do the last question, Matea, do you feel like the experience that, just being in a family that, as a bio kid, do you feel like when you grow up, is it something that you would be like, no way, I'm never doing that? Or is it something that's almost softened your heart to say, when I grow up, I might?
I mean, I've always loved helping, so I wouldn't be surprised if I ended up doing it.
Okay, last question. Mike and Christy, would you say this was your plan from the beginning?
Not at all.
Negative.
Negative.
Michelle, was this your plan?
No.
Okay. Dak and Melissa?
Yeah, absolutely not.
All right. Would you give them a round of applause? Thank you, guys.
Thank you guys so much for sharing. And like I said, I know, I just want to take just a second. If you are here and you are currently fostering children in your home, or you are actively participating in the foster system, would you please stand up? Let's give them all a round of applause. Thank you all. You made me say, I just wanted to recognize, I wish we could have had every single one of you on this panel. I would love for you, and I would just encourage you foster parents, if you would hang out in the back. We would love to invite you to hang out, and so people can ask you questions and share that as well. So take a look at a quick video here. Is it a video? I don't know what's next.
So you're really him, aren't you?
You want more proof? I haven't done the pillar of salt thing in a while.
That's all right. I believe you. I don't understand why you chose me.
You want to change the world, son. So do I.
What? Why an ark? I mean, that's like flood territory. You wouldn't do that again. You wouldn't do that. Would you do that?
Let's just say that whatever I do because I love you.
Well, then you have to understand that this whole building an ark thing is really not part of my plans here. I need to settle into my house. I need to make a good impression at work. What?
Your plans. That's
What are you talking? We're talking about an ark, right? I mean, an ark? An ark is huge. I don't even know where I would begin.
Al, I hear that a lot. People want to change the world, don't know how to begin. You want to know how to change the world, son? One act of random kindness at a time. build the ark. I'll tell you what, you build it, I'll fill it. And if anybody asks, tell them the flood's coming. Oh, and you might need this.
So sometimes God's plan looks a little different than our plan. And so this morning, I just want to remind you that for God so loved you and so loved me that he waded into my messiness. He waded into my brokenness. He waded into my hurts and my desperation. And he did that because he so loved me and he so loves you so that we can turn around and in fact show the broken and the hurting and the desperate that they are so loved. And so this morning, you guys, we want to challenge you. We realize that building an ark, fostering, may not be for every single one of you. And we totally realize that. But we also realize that for some of you, you're sitting there and you feel the tug. We realize that for those of you who it's not for every single one of you, we believe so absolutely 100% that there's absolutely something every single one of us can do, no matter if we're 15 or 115. So really there's not an excuse that, well, this or well, that, I'm too busy or I'm too young, I'm too old, I have too many kids, I don't have enough kids, there's really not an excuse. Every single one of us can do something. And so we want to tell you, we want to give you an opportunity to do something this morning and let you know what that might look like. And so Stephanie and I had an awesome opportunity to go to a training a week ago. You saw the Live the Promise. We have partnered with Live the Promise, which is an organization that is going to help us as a church be the church and to really love because it's so simple. And so Stephanie's going to show you or give you just a quick directions on what that might look like.
Okay, so we have this ministry model, and we're very excited about putting some of these positions into place. So essentially, this is going to be 4 to 8 committed volunteers that are going to come together and love on the foster families who are already involved in fostering. So if you're sitting here today and you feel the call to foster, that's awesome. But if you're sitting here saying, you know what, I'm not in a place to take kids right now, but I can do this. So each of these boxes is a different kind of job or role. So each team is going to have one team leader. That's going to be your point contact to the foster family. So you're going to have a weekly phone conversation and say, how can our team be praying for you? What are your needs? What do you have that's coming up that we can help you with? And then they're going to, in turn, tell the rest of the team. So the foster family doesn't have to have 8 different conversations. Then we hope to have 4 family helpers. So that role is going to look a little bit different in every foster family, but that can be things like providing one meal once a month. You can run errands, do yard work, whatever the needs might be. If a foster family says, well, we have bio visits on Wednesdays, and those are difficult, so maybe we provide meals on Wednesdays so that they can have some time together afterwards, or maybe there's a therapy on Tuesday, and it's difficult to get to therapy and then get home and get dinner on the table. So that role is going to look a little bit different, kind of modified to the specific family. Then we're going to have child mentors. So we hope to have 2 child mentors, and those people are going to provide childcare. You're going to love on the kids, encourage them, provide consistency. So again, that's going to look a little bit different. If you've got, an infant placement, maybe it means loving on the bio kid. Maybe it means taking them to the park for a little while so they get some one-on-one attention. Or maybe you take the foster child so that the bio family can pour into their bio children as well. And then we hope to have one interim caregiver. And that would be someone that would provide kind of a respite where the parents can maybe get an overnight away, maybe have a date night, and maybe that doesn't look like once a month, but it would be something where the family can hopefully feel loved on so they can continue to love on their foster children. So there was a statistic that said that 50% of foster families quit fostering after the first year. But with care communities in place, 90% continue to foster. And that's the goal. We want those who are called to foster to be able to continue to do this ministry.
Absolutely. Thanks, Stephanie. I got a mic. So this morning, you guys, maybe you do feel that tug. Maybe you're feeling a tug to find out, hey, I don't want to raise my hand to say I'm interested, but I wouldn't mind finding out a little bit more. Or maybe you're like, hey, I don't even really like kids. You're probably not set. The tug is probably not there for you. But I promise you, even if that's your case, there is a place for you to be involved. You can drop the meal off and not even have to see a kid. We'll make it happen, okay? So there's a place for you. There's not an excuse. So here's what I want you to do. Next steps, we've got them right here for you. So listen up. Here's what we want you to do. Take your phones out. Like everybody, go ahead, take them out. And this is what we want you to do. So if you would text, I can, to the number that's on the screen, what you're going to get is you're going to get a little form that says, hey, we'd like to have your name, and I'm interested in maybe some more information about foster care, or you know what, I'm not interested in that, but I am interested in maybe finding out, you're not signing up for anything. Maybe it's just, I would be interested in hearing a little bit more about what you're talking about with these care communities. So that's all you're doing. You're not signing up for anything. So if you text the number 618-507-0507 and you text the word I can to that number, it's just for you to find out more information. And then this Tuesday, anyone who says, I would like to know more, I would like to hear a little bit more, I'd like to ask some questions, we're going to have a dinner right here on the 11th at 6 o'clock right here. And so when you text that number, there's a little an RSVP that, yes, we'll be at the dinner. And that just helps us to know how many to plan for. So I don't see a lot of phones. Go ahead, get them out. It's good. It's all good, I promise. So we're going to sing one more. There's going to be a slideshow. If you have any questions you want to ask, you want to talk to some of these folks who are fostering, we're going to be in the back coffee area. So when the service is over, Jeremy's going to pray for us and dismiss us. Joe Buchanan's going to be back there. There are some people from Caritas, which is an organization that can help you find out, what do I do next if I want to become a foster parent. There's some people from CASA, an organization, they can tell you more about what they've got to offer. So take a minute, don't rush out the door. We'd love to just hang out with you. There's still coffee back there, and we'd love to talk. So you guys, I promise, you can do something. Let's do it. Let's be the church this morning. Thank you guys so much for being here. Let's worship.